welcome to another episode of the Webinar Talk Show. God, this has been a lot of fun for the last several weeks.
It has.
It has been, hasn't it? As Eliz Green and I have tried to put together this format that proves that webinars don't have to be talking heads over PowerPoint. So my name is Tom Singer.
And I'm Eliz Green.
And we are really, really excited today because we are bringing to the show someone that we're going to have a really interesting discussion with. Because, you know, we live in some tough times. We don't know what's around the corner. There's a lot of uncertainty. And Eliz, have you ever been out for a hike and seen those people up on like a rock face?
Yes. And I wonder why?
Exactly. And then you think, you know, that has to be hard. Even when there's no COVID, climbing a rock face must have a lot of uncertainty. And
I would imagine.
I would imagine. And today's guest actually is an expert in this. He has taken decades of climbing experience, and he has merged that together with a lot of business lessons to be able to help people reach their next summit. I think this is going to be fun. What do you think?
I think it's going to be great. Are we ready?
I think we're ready. Welcome to the Webinar Talk Show, Manley Feinberg.
Woo!
Hey, how are you guys?
Welcome.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be with you all.
So Manley, tell us a little bit about both your climbing background and your business background.
So I started climbing in '92, and I immediately got just really hooked into it, and it lit me up. I felt like I was plugged into the source of everything for me. And that was right towards halfway through college. And then after college, I got into retail business in particular. And I started noticing that a lot of my climbing experiences, when I would come back from a trip, I would ask questions like, you know, how is it that I went halfway around the world on this recent expedition or whatever, and had, you know, this experience and accomplished something that I didn't know I could do. And I've met a team that hardly spoke English, as an example. And then I'd get in my business scenarios, and I would have more support than I had on this trip or this expedition. But with all the challenges of finding the right people and keeping the right teams and getting people engaged, getting them to step up and really move together as one team, that was a challenge. So I started reverse engineering my experiences in the mountains. So it's kind of pretty unique perspective that kind of collided. And if you throw into that mix as well, balancing personal life and then trying to get keep your family intact, and my wife, she's been embracing. I used to say she would put up with it, but the truth is, a friend pointed out, she's really embraced this whole thing for years. So happy to be with my wife for 27 years and got
Fantastic.
2 kids. So trying to balance those three worlds. But the perspective of climbing mountains is pretty powerful and been really enlightening to me and others I share the lessons with. So as far as even on a tactical level and inspirational. So I think we need both. I always say if information was all we needed, YouTube and Google would have already fixed us.
Right.
So I try to be real and authentic with people and inspire them in a way that they can relate to whatever mountain they're climbing. Right. Not that any of us are dealing with a mountain right now. Right. We are all dealing with. We're all on a mountain right now. That's how I see it, and it feels that way to me. Very much an emotional and intellectually, mentally, physically, I feel the same stress and exhaustion I felt on my hardest climbs and the hardest situations in life.
And some of your early background in the corporate world is you worked with Build-A-Bear in their sort of marketing and growth back in the days when they weren't sort of the kind of name brand that they are today. So that must have been some crazy times. What are some of the similarities to watching a brand explode and grow that you find to climbing a mountain?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I got to be at Build-A-Bear for 11 years with some really amazing team of people. And it was part of a team that when I walked in the door, we had about 40 stores at the time. And so they already had some serious momentum and an amazing culture created. And then we helped just grow that to over 400 stores actually worldwide. It was really, the truth is, as anyone knows, it was in those years, I call them the golden years. It was very chaotic, really. I mean, lots of uncertainty, right? And whether you're I was on both sides of the growth curve in that I got to be part of like 2001 to 2008 when it was incredibly fast moving and fast paced. And that creates a type of chaos that my climbing lessons and vertical lessons really helped me focus. I can share some of that. And then also on post 2008, to 2011 and 12, I think I learned as much about, dealing with the situation we're all in again now, where resources are tight and people are trying to figure out, like, how do I keep people engaged? But things are even more challenging. So It wasn't all like just joy, fun, stuffed bears, but it was a beautiful culture and beautiful people that came together, which is what we have to do right now, right? And so, yeah, lots of uncertainty, but it was a great experience.
So selfishly, I'm very interested in the vertical lessons because right now, I shared before we went on air this morning, my desktop crashed. I have lots of things I'm supposed to be doing. I have a backup laptop, so that was good. But I feel like it's just a metaphor for what's been going on since the beginning of the year, really. I had a plan. I was working the plan. Now the plan is like out the window and I have to recreate. I'm willing to bet you have some lessons because I'm sure in climbing you have a plan and sometimes that plan doesn't work. What do you have for me, Manley?
Oh, thank you. By the way, I'm with you. Mean, people have asked me like, "Oh, everything must be. You seem pretty cool and calm and collected." And believe me, I've got as much going on and just stress. And it's just, have health. We have health when our family were together, so we have a lot to be grateful for. But I am really deeply disturbed in so many ways and challenged and been stressed through this whole thing too. So I don't want anybody to think I got it all figured out by any stretch.
Well, and that's the exterior of a good leader, right? Like, I got it.
Yeah.
We're going to be calm. We're going to work the system. Meanwhile, inside you're like, ah!
Yeah. And I think of revealing a little bit of that too, letting people know, say, I don't have it all figured out and but I know this, I need you. And I believe that you can help. And people want to be and they want to be enrolled in that way. I think, they want to know they're important, that you believe in them. This is, I think, the number one most important thing we can do is to let people know that we believe in them and that we need them and that we don't have it all figured out. The thing to answer your question about helping you gain some clarity in the chaos is what I've always said, especially now, right? How can we gain clarity in the chaos and deal with the overwhelm, right? Because, I don't know about you all, but I've been having trouble, getting to sleep and staying to sleep. And it's like your mind, it just wakes you up and says, dude, why are you wake up? There's all this crazy stuff going on. We got to figure this out. And our analytical mind is trying to figure out things we cannot solve, right? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned this earlier, picking things that we can control and we can focus on. But this is one of the first lessons I really started applying in the corporate world. And what I learned is, and I realized coming back from climbing objectives is, the question is, do you feel like you're trying to climb one mountain right now, or do you feel like you have multiple mountains in your life you're trying to climb? Mm-hmm. Right? And everybody answers that question multiple, right? We all feel like we're constantly personal life, professional life, not to mention the fact that we're all on this crazy storm of life with this coronavirus. And it's incredibly overwhelming. Mm-hmm. That drives our brain crazy, right? Especially our analytical brain is trying to figure this out and solve all these problems. But the advantage we have when we're climbing physical mountains is that we can only, and this is one of the reasons it's actually easier than climbing climbing the mountain we're all trying to climb right now, is that we go climb a physical mountain, we have to pick one and we climb it until it's done, right? Or till you come back off of it and you surrender. So I call it the current climb. So declaring your current climb and doing this every single day at the beginning of the day, saying, this is my current climb. And let me just clarify tactically what that means and what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean that we can ignore everything else in our life, right? I know that. But what it is it's a declaration of momentum to say, this is the one initiative that I have to move forward. And it's interesting because it's going to be some people say, well, how do I pick a current climb? It needs to be something that's high leverage, right? First of all, and it could have an impact and scale into multiple areas of your life, right? So that could just be, physical exercise as an example right now, or your diet or something that nourishes your spirit or your mind could be more important than some specific work objective, right? Because it can support all these areas. Or maybe it is a key work objective, like the one that you brought up this morning for you. You have a technology challenge ahead, and that's fundamental to the way you operate your life and your business. So
well, bet.
That's a good current climb right now, right? So that's your momentum declaration. What I mean by a declaration of momentum is that you say, every day, no matter what, I'm going to move this forward a little bit, at least a few minutes, right? And this is really powerful because we think that we have to spend, when we think of projects and initiatives like that, we think we have to spend hours doing that to make progress. But we can build momentum in just a few minutes a day, especially if we do it early in the day before the chaos of the day gets in the way. So that's the high level on it. And definitely, keep it in your face and writing it down is so important. It sounds so basic, but it does make a huge difference. I can measure my my anxiety and my productivity when I do sit down and fill out my daily planner and journal, and that, I designed it over years myself and 20 some years working through these processes. And then I don't always use it. Right. And then so I was looking back last week on the days when I felt better and when I got more done, and the days I didn't. And when I didn't write down those things I was trying to focus on, things get sideways too. There's too much coming at us right now to not leverage those resources.
One of the things I talk about is the celebrating the victories, because it's easy when, like you were saying, we're trying to climb multiple mountains at the same time. So we sort of get something checked off the list and then we move on to something else quickly, and we never get the chance to celebrate that thing that we actually got done. I would imagine this is not dissimilar from what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's another great vertical lesson that I really encourage people to celebrate the summits, right? And it's interesting. Early on, I thought of that early on in my career as being the big milestones, right? But the problem, well, two things. One is I've noticed even in recently working with people in virtual teams and events, and that there's all these little summits that are occurring day in and day out that we don't celebrate, and even the big milestones we often don't celebrate enough. And the reason it's so important to celebrate the summits day in and day out, and as a leader, and you don't have to have a title of a leader, by the way, it just doesn't matter. I mean, just the way you show up and the way you ask questions and engage with your team, you can have influence and lead in that moment.
Right.
And asking the question, what are we celebrating in your personal life or your professional life? Tell me what's good, because there's so much, we're being barraged by so much that's bad. So it creates an emotional momentum in our minds and our hearts, and it helps us just refocus. And so I'm with you. And that's my end of the day. And one of the end of the day processes in my journal is what was celebrate the summits? What went well today? Right. I'm with you. It's so important. And we have to be intentional about it though. It sounds simple. People are like, of course, but there's so much coming at us. Our day is going to be stirred by, driven by outside forces if we aren't intentional. Right.
So I love this idea of picking a summit, right? And when you say it, it's so clear. It's like you can't climb two mountains at once. I can just climb. I pick one and I climb that one. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, when you first said that, I'm like, great. But then how does someone actually pick? Come on. I mean, I got 10 mountains.
Yeah.
How do I do that in business? And how do you do that if you're standing at the bottom of 10 different faces? How do you pick?
Yeah.
I think, one thing I mentioned earlier, being at something that's high leverage is one, just from a strategic standpoint, like an 80-20 thinking, like what's going to have the biggest impact potentially. I think what process-wise, what helps me do that is to literally step away from the desk and go to a different place in my home or my yard or a park, or just shake up the physical environment. So you're not sitting and engaged in the normal tools in which you operate and chase all these balls. And then reflecting and just writing as an example, here you can have a cue as well, because there's always going to be more than one, right? So getting out a pen, getting that exercise or walking, and just try not to overthink it, but just be present, almost in a meditative way or mindful way. And then asking questions like one could be, what's causing the most stress right now? Can I do something about it?
Right.
That's one powerful one. Asking friends and people who also, your colleagues who can see your blind spots, and they know where you might need to focus more that you're not willing to, which leads me to the third perspective that can really help on this, is that trying to sense where you have the most resistance. That's a great compass in and of itself, where the one key thing that when you're feeling some uplift and you're feeling pretty ambitious, you write it down, you're like, yeah, that's the thing I need to do. But then when it comes to doing it, if you have heavy resistance, it's probably something that you need to drive after, right, and go for. So high resistance is a good flag, a good compass indicator. High leverage, and ask for friends for perspective. And get away from the normal environment. I rarely find that clarity in the normal environment in which you're trying to execute against, that current climb or whatever.
That's really smart. And let's go back to this ask the friends, because in full disclosure, Tom and I are in a mastermind group together with two other speakers, both of which have been guests on this show. That perspective has been very valuable for all of us. Say a little bit more about how we can leverage those friend relationships. And leverage, I mean, in a completely respectful sort of way.
Yeah. So yeah, this kind of ties into my core lesson. Like if people said, what's the one, if you're going to talk about one thing, what is it? And really this came from the question of people asking me over and over and asking myself, like, how can you go do the thing? How did you do the things you did on mountains, as an example, physical mountains?
Right.
And how am I getting through the mountain I'm on now? Right. And I have a lot of crazy personal life stuff going on, in addition to all the things that are going on in the world that have disrupted everything. And it's really about the relationships we have in our life. Really, that's really what it comes down to more than anything. And what I'm encouraging people to double down on is being more intentional about the relationships and the support they're giving to others, right? Just one advantage of this is it gets us out of our own funk and our own fear in our head by focusing on serving others. So in the climbing world, it's called the Belay, Belay, right? And so we literally, like, when we climb up into the unknown, we're literally leading in the unknown. We lead the rope up the wall into the unknown above. And we may have a sense of what the climb is, the nature of it's going to be like, but we really don't know exactly how we're going to do the moves and moment to moment. So we have to have an incredible amount of courage to step up in that. But that's all because we know that somebody's got the rope in their hands for us, and that they're not going to let us die, not going to let us fall. Or if we do fall, they're not going to let us go very far. So the first lens in which first thing I encourage people to do there is to really be present, and more present than we've ever been. And that's key, right? So we have to be a good belay on the climbing, when you're climbing, you have to be focused and present and be aware of how fast the person's moving, and encourage them and say, I'm here, I got you, and let them know. So for, a great example is last night we had Mother's Day dinner, and this has been a rule for us for years that I've tried to enforce, is to try to keep us off of our devices, right? So and be more present, right? And then elevate that presence. So if it's someone you haven't texted, to text them and let them know, hey, I'm thinking of you. If it's someone you usually would text, try to call them. And if it's somebody you might call now, we're elevating to virtual, like video, like FaceTime, Zoom, and then in person is challenging right now. But if that's safe for you to try to just have the most human present connection you can, that's key. There's two other lenses I can share real quick too that really help people. I think Tom's been talking about this a lot, right? With social tightening, as he calls it, is being intentional about it. He talked about making a list. Within that, I would ask two questions. And this is the question, and tactically what we're doing on a climb all the time is we're watching for two things. One is we're watching for if we have too much rope out, which we would call too much slack, right? So if there are people in your life, who in your life are you not connecting with consistently enough? Or you're not having courageous conversations with, or you're not supporting the way you think you really need to be. If you're really honest with yourself, when you ask that, who are the people that pop up? And then the opposite of that is also really critical climbing in our life, and especially where we are right now, is that sometimes we hold the rope too tight. And this is something, as I've been working virtually with smaller teams, leadership teams, I hear these two like opposites. Either I'm not connecting enough with some people on my team, and the other side of that is I need to trust more than ever, because we're remote. I'm having to delegate in a way that I haven't needed to at a level, and that I haven't in the past. And maybe some leaders are not comfortable with that. Some are really good at it. So not holding the rope too tight, so we're not micromanaging, is really key. And the fourth piece, the last one, is most important of all, is that when someone falls and when we notice things are off, that we immediately respond and engage them and say, hey, I got you. And it stopped the fall, right? We literally lock the rope off on the climb, and we need to do that and let people know that, hey, I got you. I believe in you. I know you can do this. I know this sucks right now, and help lift them up. And you all have been really good. I've had so many people do that for me, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm intentional about doing that back as well. But yeah, doubling down on relationships is the only thing I think is going to get us through this. Definitely.
So it's really interesting because I've seen you speak before when you talk about this concept of the belay, and many of us, not everybody, has been to at least a rock climbing gym where the person's on the rope and you've got the person with the belay. That's wonderful when you have somebody who's got your back. But right now, before this all started, there was already an epidemic of loneliness going on. There's a lot of people in this world where everybody has the phones and all these great tools to stay connected. There's a lot of people who feel lonely and disconnected. And so if you don't feel someone's got your rope, you feel you're on a free solo, but you don't need to be, what can you do?
Good question.
Yeah, what I would try to reach out to people. The problem, here's the challenge, is that when you're feeling that way, is to reach out to people. But when you're feeling that way, you don't feel like reaching out to people, right? For at least for me, you can get in a loop, and I'm pretty social and, connect with people. But this is a challenge I've had. We've talked about this, Tom, offline, is that, you get in this mode and then you're in a loop, right? I had a really beautiful moment with my son the other night, and we were in the middle of a lot of chaos in our home. And I said something, and I had a negative, it was just things are a wreck. So for a lot of reasons, there's a lot going on. So I said, I caught myself. I said, I'm in a negative loop. And he said, Dad, you got to break the loop. He said, that's the only way we move forward in life is breaking loops. Life is about loops, and we've got to be aware. And I said, that's the thing that I just love that. Don't you love when someone like a kid or someone outside of your normal realm of wisdom is the one who, shares something with you?
Yes.
The awareness is that this comes, something I've been talking about for years, is really, it's all about awareness. It's a foundational piece. We can't reach our next summit. We can't build momentum. We can't really make any progress without driving more awareness. So it's one of the hardest things to do, but catching ourselves in that loop or circling and being in this lonely loop, and then being able to step out of it. Physically changing our state is a really powerful piece of that as well. So like going somewhere else outside or in a different part of your house, or standing up or shifting your posture, and just leaning in and trying to reach out to somebody, even if you don't feel like it. You've got to do that. So you got to be a drive awareness, first of all, break the loop. And that's two parts of that. One is just being aware of it, stopping it.
Right.
And then a lot of things I've been doing recently too, is trying to challenge it with the opposite thought. So what that could be, but what if the opposite is true? Right? Because we see it's so easy to slip into, and I'm a very positive person my whole life, but this has given me a run for my money. Is that what if the opposite is true? Right. And then surround yourself with people who are probably at that moment the kind of people who can challenge you in that way and lift you up and be that positive force when you're not feeling your best, right? And being willing to do that. So it's a great question. That's a huge challenge though. But did that help what I shared with you?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I wrote that down. What if the opposite is true?
Yeah.
And that's a challenging thought.
Mm-hmm.
And where my mind went was, we often tell ourselves, like, we fill in the blank for other people and decide how they're going to react instead of actually letting them react. Mm-hmm. And that's a very challenging thought. I'm going to carry that with me a little bit.
Yeah. I'm going to be super vulnerable. Can I share another one that this hit me the other night? Here's a question I'm contemplating and inquiring on, coaching question for myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the answer yet. I mean, I have a sense. So I talked about it with my son and my wife's son last night, but the question I asked myself was, what would it take for me to let go of all this? And when I say let go of all this, I mean the complete stress and worry, of how do we move forward, and what are we going to do? And there's all these decisions in our personal lives we're trying to make right now to sort through things. And, what would it take for me to let go of all of this? And I think the answer is that for me at least, is if I knew for sure everything was going to be okay. And my wife said, when are you going to, I said, I need to chill out and relax. And she said, when are you going to just completely relax? I said, when I know my family is no longer threatened. Because I think core down deep, what's going on is our primal brain's freaking out because we are under threat. So we've got to drive awareness around this and be intentional in how we move through this.
So I'll take this back to a question for your world. So I'm sure, because I've seen pictures for years of all the climbs you go on, and some are extravagantly difficult. I think, is this guy crazy? And then I watch all these movies. I watch all these movies about climbers and the different things that happen. So using climbing as a metaphor, you have to have been on a climb where everything, or at least many things, have gone poorly. Mm-hmm. And you find yourself climbing into the unknown. And you've got your belay and you've got your team, but you just have to lead through the blindness. How do you do that on the mountain? And then let's take that back to your own life.
Yeah. The question that drives that is the first vertical lesson in my book. And it's about coming back to whether you're getting ready to start the climb, you're in the middle of the mess, or you're on top and now you got to get back down, is will it be worth it? Right? So for me, I'm trying to drive that. It's a really kind of can be disturbing and very powerful and very revealing question, is why would it be worth it for me to step up and lead in this time in the unknown, and help lift my team up, or my people up, or my friends up, my colleagues, my family. Why would it be worth it? Because there's parts of us that want to give in. I mean, and this is just so super, super vulnerable, revealing. I remember had a thought pop in my mind, like, well, what if I get, maybe I get this coronavirus and, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then this other voice is like, no, you're not gonna get off that easy. There's way too much. You have way too much good work you don't get out of it that easy, right? And not that would be easy; it'd be horrible. But I mean, that's how much pressure and I think we are under as people and as leaders is it's very, very uncomfortable. So our analytical mind wants out of that and wants us to be comfortable again. So going back to that question, why would it be worth it? What's on the other side of this? And remind ourselves that it is temporary. Just like the amazing decade we've had, or 8 years, 10, 12 years we had in the past, it was temporary, but this is going to be temporary as well. And I don't have to, but I've been trying to remind myself that this is temporary, and it just will not last forever. It won't. Right. We're resilient human beings, and I believe in the humanity and in all of us, and the goodness, and I also believe that we all have what we need to make it through this. It's hard to believe that when you're feeling it, though. Right?
It is. And it's something, so since we're being vulnerable, I've lived for almost 20 years now with uncertain health. I have part of my heart that doesn't beat anymore after what happened to me when I was pregnant with my girls. I live every day with that uncertainty and have had to find ways to say, I have to let go of that because I can't live in that every day and actually have a good, enjoyable life. So it's really figuring out what is essential for me to lay my head on the pillow at night and go to sleep. And honestly, it is that my husband and my 2 daughters are safe. And frankly, this has been kind of nice to have all of them back under the roof at the same time and kind of under my care in a way that I can lay my head on the pillow. And even if the stupid computer isn't working or whatever else is going wrong, as long as those 3 people are okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's just as simple as that. Doesn't mean it's easy every day. There are days that it's challenging, but really at the end of the day, if I can lay my head down and I know those 3 people are okay, it's fine.
Yep. Yeah. So Manley, as we wrap this up, any last advice for people as they sort of like navigate their summits through these crazy times?
I want to 2 things. One is I want to encourage people to, we talked a lot about tactical stuff, but 2 things I mentioned already. But one is whatever you have to do to be more intentional about building the support that you need for yourself first. This is the Belay I talked about, and making sure that you're reaching out to the people you need to support you as well, and then reaching out and serving others. And when you're doing that, I want to encourage people to let people know that how much they believe in them. I think that's one of the most important things possibly do right now. And I also want to encourage people that what I mentioned a second ago, and I do believe I want you to believe in yourself too. And it's not easy because I think we're in the mess, right? So, but to know that what if every single experience of your entire life that you had, and every moment you've had to learn and grow as a person, what if that was all to prepare you for now, right? And to be able to lead us through this. I believe that is the case. And I just want to open your mind to that. And
that is really poignant for people.
Yeah.
Everything you've ever experienced has set you up for this exact moment. I love that.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm writing that down.
I was going to say, I got to write that down. And I'm sure that translates from the wall of a mountain to a boardroom without question.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Manley, if somebody was listening to this interview and they think I got to know more about this guy and his virtual lessons, how do people find you?
Thank you for asking. Vertical Lessons, LESSONS.com. So there's 2 L's in the middle, verticallessons.com. There's something I wanted to offer to everyone too. I've got I mentioned my journal and planner process. I have a free version of it and some training with it. You can download. It's a 1-page planner. It's based on about almost over 30 years of me being obsessive about being more productive and get clarity, and on not just on a productive level, but on a personal level, spiritual level, mentally. Verticalmomentum.com. You can go to verticalmomentum.com, and it's not even an opt-in. You don't have to give me your email or anything. You can just download the planner, one-page planner, and then go through the free training videos. And that can help you get some peace and clarity and focus in this time. And I would invite you to do that, and love to support you any way I can. Whoever's watching this and checks this out later. Thank you guys for having me on your show. I was looking forward to today, just knowing, like I said, I need to be lifted up, and I knew that y'all would be the Belay I need today.
Yeah, we got you. You're doing great.
Oh, thank you.
That's right. You can make it.
It's fantastic. Well, Manley, thank you so much for being with us, and thank everyone for watching as well. We'll be back on Wednesday with more great stuff. If you're planning something, some sort of event, and would like this kind of format, Tom and I would love to help you out. You can find us at webinartalkshow.com or like us on Facebook at Webinar Talk Show.
And Eliz and I have been hosting virtual events now for over 6 years. This isn't something that we just sort of stumbled upon. We knew 6 years ago, as more and more events were looking at doing hybrid events. It never really took off, but we knew that the at-home remote audience had an entirely different set of needs than the people who are live in the room. And we'd love to talk to you more about our thoughts on how to make, any learning more engaging when it's virtual.
Absolutely. See you on Wednesday.
Thanks.
Thanks, you guys.